Start recording.
Got it.
Recording. And this
Great.
will be available for both of us to download for like 30 days afterwards. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So, hey, I'm Alex, and this is Generation Vatican II, where we try to understand what exactly was said in the Second Vatican Council and how it affects our lives. Today, we have a special guest, Bishop Bill Wack of the Pensacola-Tallahassee Diocese, which is primarily in the panhandle of Florida. Bishop Bill was born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, where he was the second youngest of 10 children, 2 girls and 8 boys. He went to Christ the King Grade School, LaSalle Public High School, Holy Cross College for 1 year, and then graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a degree in government in 1989. I was less than 1 year old at that time.
Excellent.
He entered formation in the college seminary with the Congregation of Holy Cross at Notre Dame, Indiana. After graduation, Bishop Bill went to Holy Cross Novitiate in Cascade, Colorado for 1 year, 1989 to 90. He professed first vows in Holy Cross at the conclusion of the novitiate, and then returned to Notre Dame to pursue a Master's of Divinity degree, which he received in May of 1993. Following ordination to the diaconate in August 29th, 1993, and ordination to the priesthood, April 9th, 1994, he served as associate pastor at Sacred Heart Church in Colorado Springs, Colorado for 3.5 years. He returned to Notre Dame to serve as the associate director of vocations for Holy Cross from July 1997 to July 2002. Additionally, he served as director of the freshman retreat program at Notre Dame and worked in campus ministry. From 2002 until December 2008, he served as director of the Andre House, a house of hospitality which serves the homeless and poor of Central Phoenix. In June 2009, he became pastor of St. Ignatius Martyr Parish in Austin, Texas. During his 8-year tenure there, he assisted in various ministries and offices in the Diocese of Austin. On May 20th, 2017, he received a phone call from the Apostolic Nuncio to the United States informing him that in 9 days, Pope Francis would announce that Father Bill would become the bishop of the Diocese of the Pensacola-Tallahassee Diocese in Florida. He was ordained a bishop and installed in Pensacola on August 22nd, 2017, and has begun his ministry there. Bishop Bill, welcome. Good to have you here. How are you doing?
That's a mouthful, but that's it in a nutshell. That's my life so far, but doing really well. It's great to be with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So today we'd like to talk about the process of becoming a bishop. It's rather obscure, not really something that a lot of lay people know that much about. So we'll go through sort of general questions about your life as an ordained priest and the process of becoming a bishop, what it has been like since becoming a bishop, now that you have your feet under you, but are still relatively new to the process, okay?
Sure.
So first off, like sort of a rather open-ended question: how does one become a bishop?
Well, like you said, it's obscure. It's not really obscure, I suppose. It's secretive, and so we don't really know. I never, even as a priest, I never really gave it a lot of thought. I think we're more used to people progressing in business at certain jobs, and so, or you're a teacher for a while, then maybe you're an assistant principal, and then a principal, or pick any profession and you move up, right? And of course, in the military, you're very familiar with that. And I just assumed maybe that's how it happens. You kind of apply or you move up and all of that, but I had no interest in it because it did not concern me. I was a religious order priest and am with the Congregation of Holy Cross. So typically religious are not picked for that, or weren't. But now that our Pope is a religious order person and Jesuits, then it's happening more and more. But
could you talk about that quickly? What's the difference between a religious order priest and I guess a parish priest?
Sure. Okay, so religious orders are founded with a certain charism in mind, usually addressing a certain need in the church. Certainly at the time when mine was ordered, when Holy Cross was not ordered, when it was founded in 1830s, thousands of orders were founded to do the same thing, to rebuild the church after the French Revolution, which devastated the church and society in Europe. And so a lot of these orders like ours just popped up to say, we're going to rebuild the church,
Okay.
Lay people teaching and priests out there helping in the parishes. Jesuits, of course, founded by St. Ignatius of Loyola to basically be soldiers of Christ for the church. Franciscans, Benedictines. So they're founded to do certain things, and typically they've done just that. But as time has gone on, and because of the need for priests over the centuries in certain parishes, they say, hey, can some of your priests come and help us in our parishes? And so religious kind of moved into parishes in that way.
Okay.
Diocesan priests are are ordained for that diocese. They'll spend their whole life working to build up the local church.
So I always understood it, from a very layperson's perspective, that like you enter the seminary, and as you're discerning the priesthood and whether you're going to accept ordination, there's always this question of like, do I go to become a diocesan priest or a religious order priest? And generally, my impression is a religious order priest is like you go away into like an abbey and you become a monk and you live a relatively solitary life, or if it's an out in the world order like the Society of Jesus from St. Ignatius, then the Jesuits, then you're gonna be out in the world. But it's like I don't know. I've always had this thought of like the religious order priests are relatively more secluded. So does that sort of play into, first off, if I'm right, does that play into why they're not really accepted that much as to the episcopate?
Actually, I don't know if that has to do with it, but that has anything to do with it as much as you are right, by the way. There certainly are the contemplative religious orders like the Trappists and the Benedictines, and they are more prayerful and they spend more time on their own. But there is the apostolic orders like Holy Cross Jesuits and so many others. No, the reason I think primarily is we don't aspire to it. In fact, we have said we typically shouldn't be involved in the hierarchy in that way because of our vow of poverty and simplicity. We try to just try to really embrace that. We share all of our goods within the community and everything. We don't aspire to any higher office. In fact, I believe it was written into the Jesuit rule that they couldn't be a bishop or couldn't be pope. But then,
oh wow, okay.
Again, needs of the church kind of, I think, trump some of that.
So what I assume then, like the the aspiration is something that you shouldn't have if you're a religious order priest, and then instead of attaining the episcopate, you would eventually become like an abbot of if you're in a contemplative order, huh? Mm-hmm. Or the superior general, or I don't know, am I using these words right?
Yeah, okay. If you have gifts of service, of leadership and administration, you would probably be recognized by your order to be a provincial or a superior general or something like that. But I think one of the neatest things about being a religious order priest is you could be pastor and superior of your house. And then the next assignment, you could be an assistant, or you could be under, the person who was just ordained. That could be your superior. I really like that.
Mm-hmm. So you were you used the word apostolic religious. Okay. So then you were an associate pastor at your parish because you said the church needed more priests out actually doing parish life. Okay. And then eventually you were accepted, or I guess asked to join the episcopate, because it's not like you still have a choice, right? You can say no.
I guess so. I certainly didn't think that when it happened. I had no idea. So I've taken a vow of obedience, and that's part of my life. I would obey my superiors. If they sent me anywhere around the world or told me to do whatever, I would do it. It's not like a blind obedience. They don't say, jump into this this fire or something like that. Yes, sir. And you do it. Or it's not like that, of course. It's a discernment, but still, I took that vow of obedience. So when that call came, even though it wasn't my superior in Holy Cross, what could I say? Especially when he said, Pope Francis has asked you for this or has appointed you. What do you say? Yes or no? What am I going to say? Like, tell him I'm thinking about it, But it is interesting because I have heard so many stories from my brother bishops who have said, at that time they've said, can I think about it? Can I discern? And they said this one or the one before, especially the nuncio, would say, oh, sure. Yeah, you call me back in 5 minutes and tell me your answer, or somebody else said, but I don't even know if this is, how do I know? I've got to discern. And he says, Father, it's already been discerned and decided. You just need to say yes. So it's kind of interesting. There's just a lot to say about that. It looks like, usually it's a very secretive process, but the nuncio has shared, that he's getting a good deal of no's from people today.
Oh, okay. Really?
And when he gets to that point. Yeah, I think some people are realizing that maybe it's too much. It's not for them. It is a really difficult time to be a leader of anything.
I could only imagine.
And so I think some people, are just thinking, I love being a priest. I just want to be a priest, that kind of went through my mind. And I actually said, I was really emotional during that phone call. And I said, well, can I still be a priest? Because I love to baptize and do weddings and funerals and confessions and all of that. And he said, well, of course, yes. He said, we're all priests. But I just imagined that it was going to change, and it has. I do those things, but not as often as I did when I was a priest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's beautiful to hear that. You had such a desire to be a priest, that was like the first thought you had when you received the call to become a bishop. Was like, do I still get to do this? Do I still get to do what I love? What I joined the priesthood for? So how did the nuncio get your name and your phone number? Like, is there a list held by the other bishops of like, these are people that we think could replace me or something?
Yes, and I hadn't known this. Like I said, I had no idea, but now I'm becoming an expert on all of this. But each province, that is, the United States has different provinces made up of several dioceses. I belong to the province of Miami, which happens to be all 7 dioceses in Florida, but sometimes it crosses state lines. Okay. Each province then gets together, the bishops get together regularly, and they discern names of priests within the province who could be, good candidates, just based on what we think. We talk about it together, and we propose a list. You should update that yearly or every 3 years and give it to the nuncio, who does extensive research on those names, those people. I mean,
so it's not just like, here's the list, I got it. Right. All right, we'll run with these, and
I think it takes years, and you interview people secretly around them. You look at homilies, writings, all this stuff. You go back to their seminary days. You're looking for all kinds of things, right? And all this is unknown to the person. And then when there's an opening in a diocese, the nuncio has to look among all those candidates.
The audio is cutting out a little right there.
Okay. I'll come back. Sorry about that. Are we back? Are we back yet? Oh, blast.
I think we're back now. Okay.
You're
saying the process is unknown, and that I think I can hear you. Okay,
all of this is unknown at that point to the priest, the candidate. But then when there's an opening, then the nuncio will take from that list and discern and talk to other bishops and discern about maybe 3-4 names, possibilities. Send those over to Rome to the congregation of bishops. They do more research, and then they propose 1 or 2 names to the Pope, who then chooses a name. And then it goes back to the nuncio, who informs the person that he has been called by the Pope to be a bishop, for his yes or no.
So we've got the bishops who have a list of names. We've got the nuncio who's researching the people, interviewing other friends or the person on the list, and then the Pope makes the final decision. Mm-hmm. So who all knows about a prospective bishop's election? Like, is it pretty limited where the bishops are just like, here's my list of 20 names, and then the nuncio is like, all right, I'm looking at these 5, like they're the strong candidates. Is he the only one with the Pope who's like, I know exactly who it is? Who all knows about the actual this guy? We're taking him.
There is a committee of a few bishops here in the United States and North America that meets to help the nuncio, and then when that's sent over to Rome, there's another committee of cardinals and bishops who look at it. So it gets vetted, and this is why I cannot believe I made it through any of those steps, much less all of them. Just amazing. It's just funny. And then fast forward now to me on a Saturday in Austin, having just celebrated the 8th grade graduation mass, getting ready for a wedding later on that Saturday, and then the vigil mass and confessions. I was outside looking at the air conditioner of the church, and the phone rang, and it said, unknown number, Washington, D.C. I don't know why I answered it, but I did. Hello, this is Father Bill. And he said, I am the Apostolic Administrator to the United States. And I said, I don't know what that is, but it's Father Bill. Hello again, because I didn't know what that was. I know that title, but I didn't then. And then he explained and calmed me down and said, I have news that will change your life forever. And I just said, but how did this happen? I felt like Mary, I mean, but I'm not, and then I said, I'm a religious order priest. Did you ask my superior general? And he actually said, we have a higher authority than your superior general. I tried everything. So finally he said, you ask a lot of questions. Pope Francis wants an answer. And what can I tell him? And I said, yes. With the help of God, I say yes. And he said, okay, you may tell no one for 9 days. It will be announced in Rome on this certain day.
With the help of God, I say yes. Wow, that's a great response.
That's all that came out.
Actually, I heard a pretty funny story when you first got your call, because your brother's a priest, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. A better priest, I would say, than I am.
So when you got the call, didn't you respond something like, are you sure you got the right Father Wack?
I did. I said that. And it's the only time that he was just kind of thrown off a little bit, because he had a script and he was following it through, and he was he needed to get a yes from me. But I said, are you sure you don't mean my brother? Do you have the right Father Wack? And he said, are you not Father William Wack? And I said, I am. He said, then you are the man.
Gotcha. Yeah. So talk to me about the ordination mass. What was it like? What went into the planning? Were you really involved, or did it sort of like take place behind the scenes?
So after it was announced, a whole slew of things happened in the next couple of months. First of all, I wanted to stay in the parish as long as possible. That's no slight to the people here. I didn't know them yet, but I knew that I loved that parish in Austin. I wanted to stay there as long as possible. So I stayed 2 more months. And during
like
that
you
time,
said, you loved being a priest. So yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
And so they did a lot of the work here, the diocese, on the ordination. I mean, I hate to say it, I just came, it was like plug and play for me, it was, you asked how it was surreal. I mean, it was the first time I was wearing all the regalia, and they just said, okay, you're going to go here. It was in a civic center. So there were about 3,000 people there, a lot of priests, a lot of bishops, my family, which took up 100 chairs, alone. And it's just amazing. And I've seen the video only once. It was on EWTN, and I have the video. And it's just, I have this goofiest look on my face, because it's almost like this is just not happening, And people said, what were you thinking as you lay prostrate during the litany of the saints, And I said, well, I was remembering doing that 23 years earlier as a priest. But I was just thinking again, like, this is just not happening. I mean, anyway, I don't want to belabor that, but I say that about every night. I'm a bishop, Dude, you lose me. Okay, anyway, so
that's
but it was just such
incredible. You said you're there. Yeah, we're talking over each other. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Sorry. Yeah. I blame myself for this internet connection, by the way, for anyone who's watching. No, it's just it was just a grace-filled ceremony, liturgy. The whole thing really was, because I had to say, this is not about me. This is nothing I have done. It's not like, good, I finally arrived and I'm taking my rightful place. I really felt like this was God at work, and all I could do is just say yes and let God work and minister through me. So that's really what got me through the ordination.
That's something I've thought about, having gotten to know and befriend several priests. I guess it's a little different. We've already covered religious orders, how you don't necessarily aspire to anything outside the priesthood. That is sort of like the fulfillment of exactly what you're looking for in your vocation. I wanted to ask, how do priests aspire in their careers, or some form of that question? Like, do priests normally sit down like, okay, I just graduated and got ordained, and now I'm an associate pastor, and then I'm going to become a pastor, and like that's where I want to go? Or as long as I'm offering the sacraments, then I'm good, like that's all I want to do? Or is it like I want to become a bishop, and then an archbishop, and then a cardinal, and like end up in Rome? What's the general feel from various priests about how their not their vocation but their career wants to go?
Yeah, I think I'm sure there are some who aspire to a higher office. That's just human. That's natural for some. And some people have those gifts, and they honestly want to do that. And that's great. But I think most, in my experience, and then certainly in my life, just After ordination, it's what you said at the beginning. You know you're going to be a deacon and then an associate pastor somewhere, and that's good. And in my day, you would hope to do that in maybe 2 or 3 parishes. Before, like 30 years ago, you would do that for the first 20 years. Maybe then you'd be considered.
Oh, really?
But now, because of need, it's like, okay, 2 years, 3 years as an associate somewhere, and then boom, we need you to be a pastor. And then it's funny because then all of a sudden a lot of the younger guys are like, oh my gosh, I want to go back to being an associate again. I'm not ready,
Oh yeah. I could only imagine having it, shoot, my parish easily has, 400 families in it. And like to manage, to make a really bad analogy, to manage a business that has a school and the business front, the church, and like all the income and paying and dispersing and cutting the lawn and getting the lights on. And that's incredible, very entrepreneurial of you to 2 years after graduation be able to handle that sort of work.
Budgets and everything, yeah. And frankly, that's really having an impact on a lot of the younger guys, and they're a little overwhelmed with that. And that's one thing that I took to Pope Francis in my Limina visit. I got to ask the first question, and I just said, Holy Father, our priests are really overwhelmed with administrative duties, and I am as well as a bishop. I'm sure we all are. I'm sure you are as well. I said. He nodded, and then he said, that is a perfect question. Thank you for bringing that up. And then he just went on and on about how we have to be men of prayer. He said, before anything else, put it all aside. He went like that, all the administrative concerns and everything. Pray, pray, pray. Love God before all else, and then things will fall into place. I mean, it's nothing new, but it was good to hear that from the Pope, from the Holy Father.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to get to your ad limina visit, talk a little more about that. But if we could come back to the ordination mass, you said your family was there. What was their impression of the mass? How did they come down a week early? Were they, I assume mom was crying. Talk to you about your family.
Well, they're used to a lot of religious big liturgies like this, because now having 2 brothers or 2 sons as priests. So they've been to our final vows, our ordinations as deacons, priests, and everything. So, and they're generally our whole family is Catholic and loves that. So they came down, many of them very early, and enjoyed some beach time, at a
Pensacola Beach, yeah.
Like that. Oh my gosh, yes. And saw the Blue Angels and things like that. So I don't think they saw any helicopters or anything like that. But anyway, if they knew you were flying, they would have shown up just to watch.
Yeah, we should note that Pensacola is the home port of the Blue Angels. So they fly over the city and over the beach just practicing on random days. So you can just be enjoying the really nice beach of Pensacola, Florida. And then just, oh, hey, by the way, there's a Blue Angel flying by. Oh,
yeah, it's nuts. Nice. Yeah. So they enjoyed that. And it was a nice reunion for all of us to get together. And the ceremony was great. I think they were all very proud. They got to sit up front. My folks are very quiet, and humble, and I asked them to bring up the gifts. That was the only thing I was going to ask them to do.
Oh, it must have been fantastic. Okay.
So they did that, and Mom handed me the hosts, and I leaned in, and she kissed me, I kissed her, and then Pop gave me the wine. I leaned in, and he took his hand, and he made the sign of the cross with his thumb on my forehead. And all the priests, especially, and bishops, just kind of gasped. It was a really awesome moment, especially now knowing that was the last time I saw him alive. He had died. He died just very shortly after that. So that was the last time, that visit was the last time we were together in person. So good, so meaningful. And
what an incredibly special moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So it was a great liturgy, great to share that with my family and everything. And then right afterwards, it was like, okay, that's done. Now I was in blue jeans again, just hanging out with them or something, getting ice cream, and just like I'm little Billy again. They're real.
So how you've reacted before and after and during the ordination mass, that's fantastic. One thing I noticed about the mass, well, rather, my wife noticed, she was in attendance, was that the Archbishop of the province, okay, real quick, make sure I get this right. I go to a parish. Many parishes make up a diocese. Many dioceses make up a province, and the Archbishop of the province is the bishop in charge of the archdiocese, which is just like the most, I don't know, populous or important diocese in that. Okay. So just like
You're
sort
right.
of regional breaking things up. Okay,
Yeah,
so
he's not. This is important to know that people think that the bishops and then archbishops are over bishops. No, we're all brothers, even cardinals, and to an
yeah.
extent, the Holy Father. He's a bishop, and so we're
Mhm.
brothers. We're not over each other. But when we gather like that, the one who presides would be the archbishop, just to
Okay.
preside and gather us together.
Gotcha. So one thing my wife noticed was that since Pensacola-Tallahassee did not have a bishop because you were coming to fill that spot, the archbishop precessed in at the beginning of Mass with his crook,
Crozier.
yeah, his crozier. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then like when you were actually ordained as a bishop, his crozier disappeared, and you were the only one with a crozier then because like this is my diocese. I am the leader of this flock. I am the one with the crozier now. So in the interim, I guess acting bishop was the archbishop, and then once the diocese had their own bishop, that bishop was the only one who had his crozier to be like, I am the authority here, which is quite an interesting symbolism in the very Mass itself.
Yes. Actually, it's even more dramatic in the Mass. There's the litany, the laying on of hands, the anointing of the head with chrism. The two deacons held the Bible over my head, open like my first mitre, reminding myself I'm under the word. And then I knelt down before him. He gave me my official insignia, that is the ring and the mitre and the crozier. And then I stood up and everyone basically applauded, and received me. And then he actually took me and he's supposed to guide me over to the chair. And then I sat down, and that's when I took possession of the diocese as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that point on, I finished presiding over the Mass, the whole liturgy of the Eucharist and everything, and then walked out with the crozier, pointed outward to show that I am the shepherd of the diocese.
Really? So even you took over the presiding of the Mass from that point. There's like a transition there. Okay.
Oh,
cool,
yeah, and he
cool.
said he concelebrated for the rest of the Mass.
Uh-huh. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. The difference between bishops. So you've already mentioned like, hey, there's bishops, archbishops, and even the Pope. They're all brother bishops. So I get, because then there's like auxiliary bishops as well, and they're like, I don't know, I don't want to say helper bishops, but so what is the difference effectively versus technically between the different types of bishopry?
Right. It's a matter of function, I think, not form, if you will. So we're all bishops. We're all consecrated or ordained bishops, and we have the full authority of the bishophood and the episcopacy, and we are high priests in that regard. But an auxiliary is sent to be just that, an auxiliary to the bishop or the archbishop where he is assigned. So he doesn't have ordinary power or authority over the whole diocese. The decision-making comes from the bishop. He helps him to do that. The archbishop is a bishop of an archdiocese, that's all. And again, would preside over or lead a meeting of bishops in that province. There is one other one you didn't mention. Some people ask about this, a coadjutor bishop.
Oh, okay.
In fact, one was just appointed recently. I forgot in which diocese, but sometimes one is assigned as a coadjutor, meaning you kind of share the authority of the diocese, but you're going to be the next bishop of that diocese. So sometimes sort of like in a large diocese, when you have an elderly archbishop, right toward the end of his time, you put a coadjutor in there so he can learn from him, and then he just slides right into that position.
Okay. So the previous or soon to be previous bishop could, right before he retires, sort of pass some corporate knowledge. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha. Thank you. So for you specifically, you've already kind of touched on this. How has your mindset changed since becoming a bishop, as opposed to previously being a priest?
Well, I see things a little more broadly now. As a priest in a parish, I was so concerned about St. Ignatius Martyr. Granted, in Austin, I was also a dean of many parishes there, and so I was starting to see that broader picture, and I served on many diocesan councils and committees. But now, of course, I'm just as concerned about Immaculate Conception Parish way on the other side in Perry as I am about our cathedral parish, and all the schools and even the prisons and jails and military bases here and all the hospitals, everything. And so it's stepping way back, trying to shepherd this whole area. Indeed, the Florida Panhandle. So it can be daunting. I try not to think about it too much, but try to be a good shepherd for the whole area.
So on that note, what challenges are there to being a bishop, or conversely, what blessings are there for being a bishop?
I think the couple of challenges. One, I mean, it's so diverse. Even within this diocese, we've really identified four kind of distinct, not so they overlap, but four distinct groups, I guess. We have the beach communities, we have the retired folks, we have college and government in Tallahassee, and then we have the military. And there are many others too, and some in rural places up near the Georgia-Alabama state line. So it's really kind of distinct and very different. So trying to be a good shepherd for all of those is very challenging. But I'll be honest with you, I think the greatest challenge is personal, and that is that
personal. For
me, it is, if I can, I don't mean to overshare, but it's a very lonely life, and I never really knew that. I don't know what I thought about bishops, but we don't have a lot of peers. Certainly none around here. I'm friends and I love the priests here. And I love the priests here. But you can't be best friends really with the priest just because you think about it. It's not that they're underlings, but I'm the boss, I'm the bishop. So I have to find my community now with my brother bishops, and that's tough because we're all busy and spread out. When we get together for our conferences twice a year, then we love it. We all just kind of find each other. We go to dinners, and we're always talking that whole week and sharing and enjoying time together because it's so rare to get together. So that's just to be honest, and that's the hardest thing is it's very lonely thing because. I'm it. I can't really consult. I can consult with priests and lay people here, and I do, but I'm it.
The buck stops with you, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, you had mentioned before that, like, as a priest, specifically as a religious order priest, you swore obedience to your superior. But now, I guess you are the superior. So everyone, or all the priests and deacons, swear obedience to you now.
Right. In fact, that's funny, because I said to right after it was announced, I called my provincial and I said, "What's happening? Do I have to leave Holy Cross?" And he said, "Yeah, you do actually, because you can't." He said, "You took those vows forever, but they are suspended now." So it's interesting. They're up there in the clouds somewhere. But he said, "Because you can't be obedient to me or to any provincial or superior general because you're the bishop. They're obedient to you." And he said, "Poverty. Sorry, that has to go too, because you're going to own, at least in name, all the churches and schools. It's all in your name."
Yeah, all the church property is yours, huh?
Yeah, but I still can't leverage it to get a really good cup of coffee or something like that. Of course, celibacy still remains, as a vow. But then it's interesting. Just he said, when you retire, and the Pope accepts that at 75 or whenever, and he said you can go kneel down before the provincial of Holy Cross and make your vows again, and they come back. And, I would love to do that. I think I would love to do that to return to the religious community.
Okay. That's really interesting. Would you still be an ordained bishop then, but now under the rule of your superior general?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so maybe I could help, with confirmations or something, or give talks here and there. But basically, I would just be back in. Yeah, and I mean, I suppose canonically, if someone pushed it, they couldn't order me to do something as a bishop. Do you know what I mean? Even a retired bishop, you can't be ordered to take on an assignment you don't want to. But it's more just to say, I want to live out my remaining years in this community and assist in that way.
Okay. So when I was in Florida, we actually had a retired bishop who took over temporary administrative pastoral duties at Nativity of Our Lord. So that was, first off, it was fantastic getting to celebrate Mass with a bishop so often. That was a new and novel experience. But then I also noticed very subtle things where, for the Christmas Mass, The pastor was the head celebrant, but then the bishop was, excuse me, how did this go? So that we still had a pastor, a priest, and the bishop was his like administrative aide, but the bishop couldn't couldn't be like the concelebrant at the Christmas Mass, because since he's a bishop, he would be the primary celebrant, and the pastor wanted to do that. So like the priest was, or the bishop was just sort of like kneeling off to the side, offering his prayers during the Mass, so that he wasn't like technically celebrating the Mass. There's just really interesting, nuanced things about like, while we do sort of talk about hierarchy in the church, and then we, in the same breath, kind of poo-poo them because ultimately we go towards Christ, there are well-defined canonical rules and regulations for who has authority in a parish, who has authority in a diocese. So that was, very interesting to see the interactions there.
And it makes sense, I think, to people. You don't think about these things, but when you see it, you think, oh, I get it. Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense if a bishop concelebrates at a priest's mass. That's a reverse sign. If the bishop, this is, if you want to be technical, really, I mean, at every mass celebrated in this diocese, I am the main celebrant.
At every mass. Okay.
But I can't be at all 50 churches every day, obviously. And so the priests preside in my name, which is why they say, with Francis our Pope and William our Bishop. So,
okay,
if I show up somewhere, then they always just say, okay, it's yours, of course, not, and sometimes I say, no, I want to be with you. I want you to preside. I will be in choir. We call that to be in choir, so that I'm there at Mass. I'm recognized as the bishop, but I'm not, I'm not the main celebrant. I'm praying, like you said, and that's a way to do that.
So now this sort of gets into then like what the office of the episcopate entails. Could you talk about what is your role in the diocese? What is the role of the episcopate and how you have assumed that role?
Yeah, it goes all the way back, of course, to the time of Jesus. In the Acts of the Apostles, they were overseers. The apostles then were the overseers, and episcopoi, the bishops. And so I like to think of that. I am the overseer of all of the ministries in the diocese. Doesn't mean I have to do it. In fact, I can't do everything. And so thankfully, we have awesome priests and deacons and lay people and religious. And I'm kind of, I don't know, I like to think of my life as like a conductor, enabling and helping those good ministers to do what they do. So it's that, but it's also then to make decisions that affect us, like especially during the early days of the coronavirus outbreak, to have to make that very difficult decision to suspend masses with the congregation. People say, I don't know why they did that. They'll even tell me, in a group, like, I don't know why they did that. And I say, actually, I'm they. I mean, when you say, why do they do these things? A lot of times I'm they, and I own that. And I'm not afraid to say to people, tell me if you disagree, that's fine, but I'm the one to do that. I get a lot of good advice and everything. I pray, I ask God to help lead me, but then in the end, I have to make decisions like that.
Mm-hmm. We should point out right now that we're recording this in May. It's probably not going to air till August, so a lot will have transpired with the COVID-19 crisis. As of right now, you are on the verge of reintroducing Mass in the Pensacola-Tallahassee Diocese with restrictions in place. This is a thing that you've taken very seriously. And you said you had I think you were telling me you had a council of a couple doctors and administrators with you to help make that decision. Yeah.
Yes, I had a task force together, and it included physicians and community leaders, all Catholic, and priests and some deacons and people who work here in the pastoral center. And we talked about it, and really just talked about what is the reality of the situation here in Northwest Florida. And it was their opinion, expert opinion, I would say, that we are ready to take this step to open up in a limited way, And so if people are seeing this in a couple months, it'd be interesting if you could, I wish I knew what you know now, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future and how this will play out. But we're just going to continue to monitor it. If we have to back off, then we will. But basically, just trying to make good decisions with the data that we have at the moment.
Okay. So I guess that kind of portray or is another aspect of the apostolic office, the episcopate here. I'd like to read a little bit from De Verbum and get your take on the role of the bishop. So this is Article 25. This is the third from last paragraph in the entire document. It devolves on sacred bishops, quote, who have the apostolic teaching to give the faithful entrusted to them suitable instruction in the right use of the divine books, especially the New Testament and above all the Gospels. This can be done through translations of sacred texts, which are to be provided with the necessary and really adequate explanations, so that the children of which the Church may safely and profitably become conversant with the sacred scriptures and be penetrated with their spirit. So, like, the idea that suitable instruction is very situational dependent. So right now, with the pandemic, you are suspending Mass, but then also making it very available via online streaming so that people can still have spiritual communion with their bishop, with their priests. And you're also very active on social media. I think, is it a nightly Instagram story that you do?
Facebook, Facebook Live.
Yeah. So you're really putting out there as much as you can and being very active, trying to help people understand, well, I guess, live their faith, yes?
Yeah, and as bishop, we are the primary teachers in the diocese. We're the primary educators, primary catechists, primary exorcists. And so I try to take all those very seriously as well. Teaching, I love to teach, I love to preach, and so especially now that we have the suspension of masses with a large congregation, I'm really trying to use this time to educate people. I did a whole series on the Bible on my Facebook Live every night. I'm teaching people about the last 7 words of Jesus on the cross during Holy Week, and just really trying to open that up. And I'm also trying to help facilitate the Bible studies and conversations, getting young adults together online, especially now, but also in person when that happens, because I'm very interested in doing that as well. So yeah, that falls to all of us as ordained clergy, especially to teach, but especially the bishop, make sure that happens. Yeah. And you mentioned translations. Of course, when we get together as bishops in this conference, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, that's where we take on those big issues like proper translations of texts for liturgy, etc. And so I don't do a lot yet because I don't know a lot about that, but I vote on the texts during those conferences.
So when you go to these conferences and get to meet with your brother bishops, how was it kind of walking in as the new guy and then getting to meet your other bishops, your brother bishops, and get to know them? What was sort of just like the social life like of, our bishops?
My gosh. I mean, I keep using the word surreal, and it sure was. I mean, I just keep thinking, what am I doing here? I feel like Forrest Gump. I don't belong here, and yet I find myself in these positions, and there I am with 300 other bishops from the United States. And we're supposed to call each other by their first names and everything because we're brothers, and so we're all equal. So it's just weird to go up and see the Cardinal Archbishop of Chicago, Blaise Cupich. Hey, Blaise, how you doing? Bill Wack, and just like anywhere else. And, he's like, oh, hi, Bill. Okay, good to meet you. And then you move on to the next one, and and then to see some people that I've just always really looked up to and thought the world of, Bishop Wilton Gregory of Atlanta. Now he's in Washington, D.C. And Bob Barron, I've seen him so often on on social media. And then just to see him and I just said, Bob, how you doing? And good. And he looks down at my name tag, Bill, good to meet you. And I'll just tell you this, it was funny. I saw him outside. I had said something on the floor and he said, that was a nice comment you made, Bill. And I said, well, I'm no Bob Barron. And he said, what do you mean? And I found myself, to my horror, kind of imitating him. I was like, well, like there you are, people always ask me Bob, what is this? And I'm doing Bob Barron to him, and he's just staring at me, and I'm like, anyway, good to meet you, buddy. And I just walked away. So anyway, that's my life. But it was really neat. And now that I've been to, maybe 6 or 7 of those, it's really neat because we're just like everywhere else. You find people you're a little closer to, and you sit with them. They're in the, those are my friends, and you kind of just talk during some of the meetings, and a little lively, even though a lot of the stuff we talk about is very serious.
Who are some of the ones that you sit with?
I sit for some reason with a lot of the guys from Texas.
Texas.
Several people from Austin have been made bishops, and recently with me, Mike Siss in San Angelo, and David Conderla up in Tulsa, and Danny Garcia, who's now out in San Bernardino in California. So friends like that, we always sit together right up front. I don't know why. And then Bob Barron sits behind us. So I can just turn around and talk to him anytime. It's amazing.
Cool. So to kind of build off that, then you had mentioned earlier your ad limina visit to Pope Francis. So you got to speak with the Pope. You got to bring issues for your diocese to his attention. You mentioned the stress from that various priests are having thrust upon them. What else did you bring to his attention? How did he respond? What was the Pope like?
It was amazing. We had 3 hours with him. He said at the beginning, I'm sorry I'm late. He was a little late in starting because he had a long meeting with a patriarch from Russia before. And sorry I'm late, he said, but I have the rest of the day. And this was like now at 10 o'clock in the morning. He said, I have the rest of the day for you. And we believed it.
Oh, wow.
And so we spent 3 hours, and he just said, we're all brothers here. He said, just you can ask anything. If you have criticism, if you have questions, I'll have questions for you. Let's just talk. Then he said, it was really interesting. He said, if you want, get up, walk around. He said, the water's right over there. Bathroom's out that door. Just let's go. But then it was really cool because he said at the beginning, he said, all right, we need someone to make sure everyone has a chance to say what they want to say. We need a capo, in Italian, someone to be in charge of the meeting.
Okay.
So who wants to be in charge? Crickets. I'm looking around at my 15 brothers, I'm like, I raised my hand, and he looked at me and he gave me an old man wink, just like that, and the thumbs up like that. And he said, Il Capo. So I'm like, I'm Il Capo, when the Vicar of Christ says you're in charge, like, I don't know what to do with that. And I was going to be like, for this meeting or for the whole church? Or what do you say? So that's why so then he said, all right, let's begin. So as Il Capo, I asked the first question about, stress and anxiety. But otherwise, he talked about our life together. He talked about prayer. He mentioned scripture a lot, which is, of course, you'd expect that. He talked a lot about his predecessors, especially Benedict and John Paul, and his face just lit up when he would talk about them, and he quoted them at length. And just very humble. He's very quiet. He spoke in Italian. We asked questions or responded in English or Spanish, and he had a young African priest who was just brilliant, just boom, 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 translating right in his ear, and translating back to us in English. So that was really neat, but it's really neat. There are a few very touching moments as well when he just shared about how I get the sense that his happiest times in his life were when he was a priest and then an archbishop in Buenos Aires. And he just talked about how just loving that, being a shepherd like that. And he talked about his frustrations with the media, and he said, please don't believe everything you read about me. And all of us looked and we said, we know exactly what you mean. Very tender, very, very neat. And, we got up in the middle of it sometime. I just got up and I got some water and I'm stretching. I'm just doing this. The Pope's talking. Felt very strange. And I always like to say this. My mom doesn't want me to share this. But anyway, I figure, 2.5 hours into it, I got to go to the bathroom, right? Had a lot of water. So, but then you don't get up and walk out when the Pope's talking. But I want to see the Vatican bathroom. So I got up and just walked out. The bathroom wasn't that interesting. It was a bathroom. And then quickly got back in, washed my hands, and went back in. And then as I was walking in, he was walking out. He said, now the Pope needs to use the bathroom. And I was thinking, and I walked in, and all the guys just stood up and were stretching. And I said, you guys, I cannot be 100% sure that I flushed, actually. So anyway, just a funny moment. But he came back in, and I tried to avoid eye contact with him. But it was just a really blessed time.
Bishop Bill.
Yeah. So. I know, insert joke here.
Okay, so the Pope is very personable. You really enjoyed meeting him. He of course has great respect for the two popes that were his predecessors. I mean, one's a saint. People are kicking around that the other's going to be a doctor. Like, I mean, okay, I get it.
I know, right?
I mean, well, but shoot, I mean, the whole like don't believe the media thing. There was that movie, The Two Popes, that came out recently. Now, I won't get too much into it, but I felt like it was very much trying to build upon this facade that has been built about Pope Francis and another facade that was built on Pope Benedict.
I agree.
Without really giving a good air toward, there were truthful moments in there, but then it went too far. So, and it tried to portray them too separately, as opposed to the deep respect that Francis does have for Benedict. Okay.
Yeah. We asked him if he saw the movie, and immediately he just said no interest. So he must get asked that a lot. But he doesn't watch any movies or TV. He doesn't have one, so he just said no interest. Like, next question. But you're right. I mean, I liked the movie, but not because I thought it portrayed them in a serious, in a totally truthful way. It's a fantasy. And it really should be called The Life of Francis. It was very unfair to Pope Emeritus Benedict. But it is kind of neat to imagine what it would be like if they, had talked before Francis was elected. We're friends and all that. I do love that, though, and we did ask him about that, and he, like I said, he really lit up when he talked about Benedict and said, he kind of like it's just so awesome to have an elder statesman here right in your neighborhood that I can consult or talk to at any time. So.
Yeah. So then you were obviously in Rome for more than just your, couple-hour visit with the Pope. What did you like about the city and the Vatican? What all caught your eye when you were there?
So it's called, the visit is every 5 years. Every bishop goes back to Rome, just like St. Paul went to Rome to speak to St. Peter in the Acts of the Apostles. It's been going on since. Ad limina means to the limit, to the threshold of the apostles. So you go, and there's a couple things you always do. You go venerate the tombs of Peter and Paul, and we did that. Celebrate Mass in all 4 of the major basilicas. You visit several of the offices called dicasteries in the Vatican, and then you visit with the Pope. That's things you do. So just the other things it's really interesting to go to the office of saints, office for the bishops, office of protection of young people, congregation for the doctrine of the faith. It used to be called the Inquisition, the Office of the Inquisition, I believe, way back. I mean, these are 2,000 years old offices. So that was really neat just to see a little bit about how it all works. Spoiler alert, it's like offices, it's like our office here. It's not like this magical thing, where you're going into the house of magic in Harry Potter or something, or whatever that is. It's just, there's cubicles and offices and stuff like that, and priests and bishops and cardinals checking in, and I don't think they punch a card, but they work, and all that. But that was really neat as well. I think just what I like, I haven't been to Rome. I've only been there twice quickly before that. So it's neat to be a tourist as well sometime, just to walk around and pray in some of those churches and be very proud of our faith and our tradition. That's something that hit me. A big surprise on this trip was just being a bishop wearing, of course, the gear, walking around, not the gear, but, even the Roman collar with the pectoral cross, or being in the cassock as we were when we saw the Pope. I mean, it's like you own the place. The Swiss guards salute to you. They open doors. They can talk to you, and doesn't happen if you're not a bishop. So that was kind of weird to walk around like I own the place.
But that must have been special then. Who else was there with you? What other bishops were in your group as you were going around?
So everyone from Florida, all the bishops from Florida, but also Georgia and Carolinas. So it's more than a province, but it's a certain district or region too. They're broken up into regions too for certain purposes like this.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, thank you for that. I guess at this point then, I'd like to pivot toward looking a little at the future, what you have on your docket coming up. So one thing I know you're very passionate about is you are actually championing the cause for canonization for some Floridian martyrs. Could you talk to us more about that?
Yeah, so this is just something that I inherited when I came here. The bishop of this diocese is the bishop who does this, who is the bishop of competence, they call it, because many of the martyrdom events, as they're called, occurred in Northwest Florida, but also in Georgia, in the Carolinas. So we're putting them all under one title, the Martyrs of La Florida, which included this whole area, And we have great documentation for most of them because the Spaniards kept awesome documents, awesome records.
Yeah.
And
nice.
I mean, details of these persecutions and martyrdoms of many, many people, 87, I believe. And we need to do some more research on them. And then we're going to give it all over to Rome and they will decide whether they could be beatified or not. We're very close. We've got a lot of work to do. We still need to get more records out of Cuba, and that's hard, as you can imagine, just getting the permission to go into the archives there. But I went down there and secured the permission to go into the archives, so hopefully we'll have that soon, and then we'll present all that. But it's going to be known. We have the lead martyr is a young man who clearly was martyred for his faith, tied to a cross and burned not far from here, from Pensacola. His name is Antonio Cuipa, a Native American who was converted to the faith and killed. So it'll be known, they will be known, hopefully, as Antonio Cuipa and Companions, Martyrs of La Florida.
Mm-hmm. So you seem rather sure, just based on their mode of dying, that they were converts and then executed for their faith. So I take it that's a very strong case for canonization then, huh?
Right, exactly. We know because of their records that they were killed. We have to prove, though, that they were killed, as it says in Latin, in odium fidei, out of hatred for the faith. And that's what we have to prove. And it's pretty easy to say, when someone ties someone to a cross and lights that on fire, and burns the person to death, that's not a random way of killing someone. They're doing that because they hated the faith. Or when they were told, if you don't step on the host or spit on this cross, you will be killed, and they didn't and were killed. That's pretty clear that it's out of odium fidei. So we just have to prove that without a doubt. And all these events occurred, they're called events, they all occurred between the 16th and the 18th century in this area.
Wow, that's a very large. And so 87, you said 87 people over that 200-year period. That must be quite the project. I understand why you would have inherited this as opposed to, it must have been going on for a while.
It's amazing, but I could talk forever on it. But what's neat is over time, kings even from Spain and other officials have said, why aren't we pursuing this cause? This is back in the 16th century. We should pursue. These are martyrs in the New World, and yet it was dropped. And then later on, it was picked up in the 18th century, and then it was dropped, and then it was picked up in 1985, and then it was dropped. Picked up finally in 2012, and really we're running with it. But just one other quick thing. So when I went to the office in Rome for the causes of the saints, they knew about that I was coming, so they were ready. But I presented them with more material, and I said, we really hope this goes through. And they said, well, we can't do anything until you give us all of that info. And I said, we could really use your help. And they said, that's not the way it works. You have to. We can't help you. We are the devil's advocate at this point. You need to prove to us. So, all right. And then it was funny because the cardinal just said, I forgot what language he was speaking, I think maybe French, but translated. He just smiled and he said, and I knew he was saying something like this, but then when it was translated back to me, he said, 400 years, that's a long time ago. If you had more modern martyrs, it would probably be easier then to get the paperwork. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll do what we can do. I'll see what I can do about that. But I just thought that was kind of funny. It's like, this is really hard because it's way back.
To get someone acknowledged as a saint, that's really worth pursuing. So that must be fantastic to be a part of. Yeah. So you said it's throughout Florida and even into Georgia a little bit as well. So why are you what was the term you used? I said
Bishop
champion.
Of Competence.
Bishop of Competence. Yeah. So why are you the designated Bishop of Competence?
Yeah, I've never been called competent for anything really, so it's kind of funny. But it's because somebody has to take the lead, and because this crosses many different dioceses, you want to lump them all together in this case. And so they have, and the majority of the events took place here in what is now the Diocese of Pensacola-Tallahassee. And all the other bishops then have agreed, signed something saying, we want you to pursue these, even though they're in what is our diocese now. We want you to put them all under that one title of the Martyrs of La Florida.
And do those other bishops for the other dioceses, do they participate actively in the investigation at all, or is it just sort of like, hey, Bill Wack has it, we'll go from there?
Initially they did. We had an opening for the cause and everything when Rome officially opened it, and then at one of those conferences in Baltimore, my predecessor, Bishop Parks, made an announcement in front of all the bishops, because you have to ask formally, brothers, should we pursue this? And all the bishops gave their approval, saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
But now, basically I keep them informed, and it's each milestone I'll reach out to all the bishops and tell them where we are.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'd like to step away from that now. And you mentioned the primary role as the educator. You are in charge of your diocese, and how have you pursued education for the souls that you are responsible for, the people that reside in Pensacola-Tallahassee?
Yeah.
Any special projects that you've gone down?
Certainly trying to build up campus ministry. We have a couple of really vibrant campus ministry programs, so I think that's a natural thing to do. And then also with our schools and high schools, we've really brought in not just education, but more education on the values and virtues of our faith. And so we're really trying to build that up and not just talk about math and science and arts, but what does it mean to grow as a Catholic? What is our faith? Not just the catechism, but what does it move us to? How does our faith inform our decisions, in all of those disciplines? So and then in the parishes, just to really encourage people to have adult Bible study or retreats. Acts are very popular retreats here as well. I'm trying to think of other initiatives, and just trying to, whenever I go to a parish, I always try to teach something certainly about the scriptures, but also about liturgy and about the church. Just really try that whenever I'm invited, I go all over the diocese giving talks and presentations as well.
Yeah. So when I was still living in your diocese, there was a Saturday morning Bible study where we went over the upcoming Mass readings. I found that so beneficial. Now, I just moved a couple months ago, so now living in my new home, I have yet to find such a Bible study. But if and when the Mass is reopened here, I plan on at least approaching our parish pastor and asking him about that and seeing if there's some way we could pursue a similar engagement here. It's so fantastic to be able to engage in the Word beforehand and meditate on it, and then you go to Mass and you just feel a little more prepared. So that's wonderful.
Right. Okay. And I love it when people come up to me and they say, "Here's an idea. We should do this," and then they say, "And I'd like to help with it." Because a lot of times people say, "Here's what you should do in your diocese or your parish," and I always look at them like, "And can you?" "Oh no, I can't do anything. I think you just need to do this." So if you say, I'd like to build this up. I'd like to have a faith sharing group or Bible study or retreat, and I'd like to do it, man, you're going to get a yes almost all the time.
I mean, well, yeah, we lay people are the church militant. We should go out. Well, I guess you're also part of the church militant. Yeah.
Right. Sure.
But we should take that word and say okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something for the kingdom. And that something might be starting a prayer shawl group, for someone at the parish. My wife, before we got married, her home parish, it was all like the old ladies would get together. They would knit shawls and then use those as prayer shawls. But that's a fantastic thing to do. A wonderful thing to get started. That someone was just like, "Hey, I like knitting. So do my 3 friends. Yeah, let's do it there."
Exactly. Right. Yes.
To have the church be like a more integrated part of your life, where you can do simple things like this and offer it toward God as an offering. Something, I guess, rather Opus Dei about that, where what you're doing, you can offer that to God. So that's
absolutely. You're right. Yep. Yeah, I really love that. I love that we have groups, people praying for seminarians or for our priests, or just like I said, trying to doing RCIA, bringing young people or bringing people into the church, and educating them, forming them.
So you don't need to be a Catholic Answers apologist to just do something at your church,
Right, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So tangentially related to that, could we talk for a minute about the seminaries? So first off, you do have seminaries in your diocese specifically, yes?
Well, first let me just say that I know this is recorded, but I will need to go soon to another
That's okay.
meeting.
Yeah, we've been going for an hour, so we can.
But we don't physically have seminaries here. We go. We send our guys to Miami and Boynton Beach, which is in Palm Beach Diocese. So that's where our college seminary is and our theologate is, respectively. So yeah, and I'm on the board for those seminaries, and yeah, all the dioceses send our guys down to those two seminaries.
Okay, and so do you sponsor the candidates or the seminarians, and is there a process to interview with you, or do they just sort of like apply like they would to college and go?
Oh gosh,
discern?
No, yeah, we have a vocation director, and he has a team, and he's the one who engages with them and takes them down there to visit and prays with them and discerns with them, and then when they're ready, then he convokes or convenes this seminary acceptance committee. I don't even know what it's called, but anyway, and I'm on that, of course, and I preside over that. And then he presents the candidates, and they're there, and we interview the candidate at that point, and then accept them or not. And then, yeah, they're seminarians for this diocese, so we pay for their education, and we support them throughout their time in formation and everything. I go down there for meetings, but I also go down there to meet with them and pray with them occasionally.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you for that. I guess if we could just close, last two questions for you then. What do you find most encouraging in the next 5 years? Looking forward, what is the next blessing on your horizon? And then what most concerns you in the next 5 years?
Okay. Well, I'd like to end with something very positive. So I'll start with the concern. I think the concern is it's not a surprise, but how fractured we are as a community, and that shouldn't, but it does spill over into the church. In fact, sometimes it could be worse, in the church. And by that, I mean just in opinions, that's one thing, but in just our attitude toward one another. And, especially in the time of crisis with the coronavirus, I'm well aware that, people are angry and anxious and upset, but it's really disheartening when they take it out on each other or me or the priests. Just the other day, I got something, that someone's very angry that we suspended masses with the congregation, and just said, in an email to me, obviously you don't believe in the Eucharist, the real presence, or faith. You don't have faith, and neither do any of our priests. And so, we have to say, oh gosh, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I did, and I said, I pray for you. But then I said, I'm really offended at that, and that is hurtful. And just unbelievable that you would say that about a priest or a bishop or a fellow Catholic. But I'm really concerned that that's where we're going. Online, especially social media, is so toxic, and people are so angry that I don't know where this will go. It moves toward congregationalism, frankly. If you don't like the Pope, you don't like your bishop, you don't like your priest, or you think a blog is much more important than an encyclical, then you have ceased to become a totally faithful Catholic at that point. Then you're following your own designs. And I think we're moving toward congregationalism, or being a United Church of Christ member, for instance. So that really concerns me. Somehow we'll have to get that back where, we remember that actually bishops it's not their personal position. They're not being political. They're our shepherds ordained by God. That doesn't mean they're always right. We are sinful and we make mistakes, but we just have to somehow get back to that. St. Ignatius of Antioch said, where the bishop is, there is the Catholic Church. Conversely, you could say, if you've thrown out the bishop, if you've dismissed him, then there is no Catholic Church in that local area. So that concerns me, and I think we all need to try to figure out how to get that back, because it's only getting worse. Now, what gives me hope is, conversely, what's happening now. That I think largely because of the crisis in which we find ourselves, people are reaching out to others. People are connecting in ways they never did before. And I don't just mean over video conferencing like this, but calling people, small groups, prayer partners, doing good things for people who are in need, or just their neighbor, going shopping for them. I really like that. I think it's calling us back to our roots. and people are sharing their faith also on social media in very raw and real ways. A lot of people who participate in our online masses and services are actually not unchurched or not even Catholic. I hear from people who say, I never would go to a Catholic church, but I watched it online and I'm really interested. I never knew this. So there's some hopeful ways in which I think we can grow as a church if we can really overcome these obstacles and this division and vitriol that we all seem to experience and fuel and come together as God intends us to.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, Bishop Bill, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful speaking with you. We wish you the best on your future endeavors, and look forward to seeing you maybe later, speaking with you later. And yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. God bless you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.